Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en proven Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kuru, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kourou, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kourou, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kourou, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kourou, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kourou, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kourou, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kourou, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kourou, centre spatial guyanais. Ici, circuit son français en provenance de Kourou, centre spatial guyanais.
Soyez les bienvenus à un rendez-vous en cette fin de nuit avec un lanceur Soyuz et sous la coiffe.
We've got a Soyuz launcher with its 5 passengers. Here we are in Kuru at the European spaceport for the 9th and final launch of 2019.
Un lancement qui a connu un report de 24 heures hier.
We saw yesterday that the launch was postponed by 24 hours. The countdown was interrupted 1 hour before liftoff due to a technical problem. All the safety procedures have been followed. The team has been working all evening and much of the night so that we could go ahead with the liftoff this morning. This is the 23rd Soyuz going up from the equator. It's the STA version today, 47 meters in height, 309 tons at liftoff, with a performance requirement of 3 tons 65 kilos. And as I said, under the fairing, there are 5 passengers. First of all, Cosmo Skymed second generation. 2 tons 198 kilos. It's an Earth observation mission, and the mission will last 7 years.
Suivi par
This will be followed by Keops, 272 kilos. It's for space exploration and is a 3.5-year mission. Then we have OPSAT, 6 kilos, and ISAT, 4 kilos. Both of these are science labs for 1 year. Angels weighs in at 19 kilos, and it's the prototype of the future constellation for Argus New Generation Geopositioning. And this mission lasts 2 years. So that was a quick introduction. Let's go inside Jupiter now and back to Joshua Jean-Paul, who will be there for the English-speaking commentary. Over to you, Josh.
Right, Thierry, welcome. Our broadcast coming to you live, as always, from inside the big Jupiter Mission Control Building here in the heart of the Space Center. Jupiter is the center of all the action, and you can see behind us a lot of action going on as the team's here gearing up for the liftoff as the countdown proceeds. Much the same happening at the bases around the world where the mission is being followed. Coming up on about 17 minutes to liftoff time. Very happy to have with us Stefan Israel, Arianespace Chief Executive. Welcome, Stefan.
Good morning.
We won't keep you too long. We just have a few questions for you. First question. Soyuz 23 is the 9th and the last mission of the year for Arianespace. What makes it so special?
Yes, so this is the 3rd Soyuz of the year. The 49th Soyuz we do with our Russian partners from Baikonur and from the Guyana Space Center, and the 9th launch of the year. And this mission is very special for us because it is a mission for our European institutions, for Italy, it is the main passenger, it is Cosmo Skymed second generation, for ESA with Keops under strong leadership from Swiss, and we have also 3 little babies, 3 CubeSat, ISAT, OPSAT and Angels, for ESA, for CNES, and for 2 innovative companies, TVAC and Emeria. So a lot of babies on board and all will be okay.
All will be okay. All the babies going, as you mentioned, to sun-synchronous orbit. That's one detail. Can you give us some other details, some other facts and figures on the mission?
Yes, so we have made the decision approximately 5 hours ago to go to the final fueling operations of the launcher. We have checked with our CNES colleagues the weather, which is okay. And so now we are in the very, very last moment for preparing the launch. Everything will be okay for launch at 5:54 and 20 seconds, and it will be a long mission. The missions will last 4 hours and 13 minutes. We will have 6 burns of our frigate upper stage. We will first liberate Cosmo Skymed after 22 minutes. Then approximately 2 hours after, we will liberate Keops, and almost 2 hours after, we will liberate ISAT, OPSAT, and Angel. So we will have to be patient. We have 4 hours and 30 minutes of missions this morning.
Long mission this morning. I don't think we've ever had as much as long a mission. No?
I think it's one of the longer. When we make for Galileo, it takes a lot of time as well.
Okay, very good. Stefan Israel, many thanks.
Thank you.
Stefan is going to take his place behind us in the fishbowl, and he'll be back with the speeches, the traditional speeches at the close of the broadcast. Countdown, of course, and not just a 3, 2, 1, push a button and lift off. It's a very complicated procedure, which is why we have many events going on as all the information flowing in here to Jupiter, monitoring the liftoff. We're going to stay in Jupiter because we like to introduce the key players that make the mission happen, and a lot of them are here in Jupiter. You're looking into the Arianespace High Command, called the Flight Desk. Heading up the team will be Stefan Israel, who has not made his way to his place yet, but will momentarily. With him, Roland Lagier, the Chief Technical Officer, and with them, Andrei Mazurin, Roscosmos Flight Director, the Russian Launch Authority. All right, we will leave Jupiter for the moment, go back outside to Terry for a look at the Soyuz ground facilities here in Kuru. Terry.
Yes, Joshua, I'm not very far away from you, just a few meters above, and I'm outside, and that means that a long way off, I can see a distant glow in the Guyana night sky, and that glow is above the forest, and it's quite simply the Soyuz launch zone, which is up at Sinnamary, which is some 28 kilometers from Jupiter, where we are. And at the launch zone, we're now going to see it, actually, thanks to the drone. At that launch zone, we've got all of the fueling facilities, the final assembly building, and also the massive flame trenches. And on top of this, you see Soyuz. There's also the Soyuz Launch Center. And among the people working there, you've got the Quick Look Telemetry Data Unit. And now we'll hear from Armel Girard.
Asks the Guyana Space Center to set up a ground stations network able to track the launcher and to receive its telemetry. This telemetry contains all the data and parameters collected on board and set to the ground via radio frequency emission. For VS-23 launch, this network features the following stations: Galio in French Guyana, Saint-Hubert in Canada near the city of Montreal, Nunosia in the west coast of Australia, Lucknow in India, and Mauritius Station on the Indian Ocean island. With this network, the launcher is followed during the main phases of the flight. Because of the duration of the mission, each station will be overflown at least twice. The data collected by these stations are immediately sent to the CDLS, the Soyuz Control Center in French Guyana, and to the Frigate Flight Monitoring Center in Moscow. The most meaningful parameters of the launcher are monitored in real time by Aриan-5 and Russian experts. This data refer to the propulsion of the launcher, its trajectory, and the flight control. In Moscow, NPO Lavochkin experts in trajectory and ballistic perform the calculations to assess the separation condition of the satellites and their orbital position. Our technical representative in Moscow for this flight is Antoine Courtois. He is particularly in charge of the delivery of the final orbital diagnosis to Jupiter Mission Control Center.
And all of the data is then thoroughly analyzed, and it'll make up the memory bank. You can imagine that there's an awful lot in that memory bank after 315 launches with Soyuz, Ariane, and Vega. We're now going to hand over immediately to Joshua. Joshua, we're going into a very significant moment in the countdown.
Right, Terry, at 11 minutes to go, the launcher's waiting on the pad. We're going to go back inside Jupiter to continue presenting the main players, the dramatis personae, the people making the mission happen. Two people you're going to be seeing a lot, and especially hearing from one of them, the mission director, Cyril Ponroy from Arian-5, and he's working alongside the range operations manager, a.k.a. the DDO. Tonight, Hugues César-Bogam in the role, and you're going to be hearing him calling out the key announcements on all the major milestones during the countdown and during the flight. Like now, he's going to shortly call out the 10-minute mark. That's the 10-minute mark, beginning of the automatic or the synchronized sequence. This is the moment when power passes from the ground to the onboard computers, making Soyuz autonomous. Last thing we want to show you, the green status panels on your screen there. They are a real-time summary of the different launch services provided by the base. Everything is green, which means, which is as it should be. Any problem will get a red, and we'll have a hold in the countdown. We check these from time to time before lifting off. All right, our stage is set. You know all you need to know. I'm going to make my way to the broadcast booth, and we're going to go back to Thierry outside, who will close out our opening segment. Thierry.
Yes, indeed. We're now into the final part of the countdown. Everything's going ahead smoothly. Everything is green, as you can see. The launcher is becoming increasingly autonomous, and that'll continue right through to liftoff in a little over 9 minutes from now. Let's take a look at the campaign itself together with Cyril Ponroy and Klaus Zell.
Today marks the entry of the final phase of the launch campaign, which started on October 14th, with the unpacking, the pneumatic controls, some minor modifications of the thermal installation of the attitude control systems on frigate, followed by the autonomous electrical verifications of the versatile frigate upper stage. The pre-integration of the 4 lateral boosters, the first stage, with the core stage, the Block A, or also called the second stage of the Soyuz launcher, was performed during the second half of October. Final assembly and testing of the vehicle started on November 25th, some days prior to the beginning of the combined operations.
My name is Cyril Ponroy, the mission director for the flight VS-23. The launch campaign began on the 16th of October, earlier than scheduled, due to a request from Airbus, who optimizes the transportation cost for Keops by sharing the same Antonov than TB1, one of the passengers of the flight VA-250. Angels, one of the auxiliary payloads, arrived also in the same Antonov. After the arrival, Keops performed some health checks for 2 weeks and then began a standby phase. The satellite was transferred to the S5A through the clean corridor for the propellant loading. The fueling and the pressurization were performed in 1 day on the 23rd of November. After the meeting on the adapter, Keops was encapsulated inside the ASAPS, the multiple launch structure for Soyuz. ISAT arrived by freight on the Air France flight on the 21st of November. The preparation campaign lasted 3 days before being ready for the meeting. OPSAT, the third and last auxiliary payload, arrived by hand luggage on the Air France flight on the 27th of November. The 3 auxiliary payloads were mated on the ASAPS on the 13th of November. Cosmos SkyMed second generation, the main passenger, arrived by Antonov on the 12th of November for 3 weeks of preparation inside the S1A building. We transferred the satellite to S3B building for the propellant loading.
Frigate was brought onto the F-Cube, the frigate fueling facility, on November 7th for the pressurization of the helium vessels to flight level and the fueling of the starboard propellant tanks. After the final preparations, frigate was transferred on December 5th to the S3B, the spacecraft fueling and preparation facilities.
The ASAPS with Keops, Angels, ISAT and OPSAT was integrated onto the frigate on the 6th of December. Finally, Cosmos SkyMed second generation was integrated onto the ASAPS on the 9th of December, completing all the satellite activities.
The rollout of the 3-stage from the MiG building to the launch pad has been performed on D-3 last Thursday, as well as the transfer of the upper composite and the frigate from the S3B onto the launcher. A special thank you goes to all the operational teams for the huge efforts and contributions to take us through this very smooth launch campaign so far. Thank you for watching.
Back in the booth, we were supposed to go, as you heard 24 hours ago, we were delayed a day by a small technical problem, but all is well now and we're on our way. The 9th and last launch of the year for Arian-5, and it has been a busy year. We'll have a recap of all the 2019 launches coming up for you. And we have a very busy mission tonight, a multiple launch, 5 satellites, 7 upper stage burns. They've done that at Baikonur with the Soyuz, but we've never done it here. So tonight is a first, and we're glad you could share it with us. What is not a first, of course, is the Soyuz. Soyuz, I just learned, by the way, means union. The Russian launcher, going back to the very first days of the space race, the mid-60s, it has handled all types of missions. The DDO did not call it the Klushna start, but we do want to mention that. That's the key that's actually turned manually to start the final synchronized sequence. Another place besides Jupiter is very busy is the launch zone where the management teams are. You saw Klaus Zell, who's the launch complex operations manager for the Arian side, and you saw Alexander Sharavan, heading up the Russian team. Work done out there carried by their teams, one team responsible for executing the flight chronology and the other for verification of the flight worthiness of the Soyuz vehicle herself. The Launch Complex Operations Manager heading up the group responsible for execution of the chronology. And he coordinates with Mission Control for final authorization to launch. So these people hard at work now in the Launch Control Center going over the final checks and the verifications to all parts of Soyuz launch system. 4 minutes to liftoff time. Some things to watch for at -2 minutes 35 seconds. You'll hear the DDO call out the electrical umbilicals, those are cables, on the satellites have been released. You may be able to see that. They drop into a metal basket designed for the purpose of retaining them. Here in Jupiter, you see the operational teams in the foreground, in the background, the invited guests. The operational teams, in fact, to launch Soyuz or an Arian or a Vega, for that matter, we need also security people, we need support from the Army, we need firefighters, a lot of other professions. These workstations, staffed by teams in charge of the launcher, the satellites, and the space-based facilities. The room divided into two parts, as we mentioned. The seating area in the back in red seats 250. 3 minutes to go. Soyuz waiting. Countdown, we mentioned a very complicated process. Some argue it's the most intense part of the entire launch campaign. To get us here, many things have already had to happen. For example, -4.5 hours, we began filling the tanks with their hydrogen peroxide and liquid oxygen. At -1 hour and 35 minutes, that filling was completed. By the way, once the launcher is filled, we have 3 days to launch. Otherwise, the fuel begins corroding the vehicle, and we have to empty the vehicle of its fuel. The same is true for Arian-5. DDO has just called out the largage, the jettisoning of those cables I mentioned for the satellites. About an hour ago, the gantry was moved back 80 meters. You can see it to the left of the vehicle. Coming up on the final ignition sequence. At 2 minutes, you may start to see the people here in Jupiter. Not quite yet, but in a moment. Yes, there they are. They're going to start making their ways out to the terraces. There's terraces on either side if you haven't been here, giving a fine look onto the launch pad. And they're going to get a bird's eye view of liftoff. -40 seconds, Soyuz will be completely autonomous because at that time power has been transferred from the ground to on board. There's the drone's eye view of the terraces that we mentioned. There's another on the other side of the building. Power being transferred from the ground to on board. The computer's taking over at -40 seconds. -35 seconds, the arms will retract from the launcher. You should be able to see that on the screen. That's a very exciting moment. The DDO will call it out. The DDO is going to call out.
DDO, attention pour -1 minute.
He's going to call out the 1 minute mark.
Stop, I0, -1 minute.
60 seconds to go. Give us a chance to say hello to our friends in Rome at ASI, at the Italian Space Agency. They're taking the broadcast out there. Also to our friends in Toulouse at the Cité de l'Espace. You're following us as well. Hi also to all of our partners here and in Europe and around the world. And to all of you following on the internet. And there's the mast.
À tous de DDO, attention pour le début de la séquence d'allumage lanceur.
We're ready to go. We're going to cut away. You'll hear the DDO call out the final countdown. Enjoy the launch.
Top, I0, -20 secondes. Lagage du mât VKM, allumage triétage, à tous de DDO. Attention au décompte final. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, unité, top décollage. Les paramètres bord sont normaux. Bon fonctionnement des moteurs du premier et deuxième étage. Stabilisation du lanceur sur les 3 axes.
Well, fine shots, always impressive no matter how many times you see Soyuz powering into the sky. 309 tons at liftoff. That's less than half the mass of Arian-5. The boosters are the first stage. The boosters on the central core, or second stage, are burning now,
Les paramètres bord sont conformes à l'attendu.
As the DDO says, all is well on board. The boosters weigh 45 tons each at liftoff. Total mass of the first stage, 178 tons. Their engines running on liquid oxygen and kerosene. The same propellants used in each of the 3 lower stages.
Les paramètres propulsifs sont conformes à l'attendu.
The second, or the core stage, similar to the boosters, its ignition occurred on the launch pad. As you saw, the stage will burn for 4 minutes. Remember, Soyuz weighed 309 tons at liftoff after separation of her boosters, which you may be able to see by with the naked eye, but there's the onboard camera showing you what it looks like.
Séparation des 4 propulseurs.
At separation of her boosters, she's down to 135 tons. So in less than 2 minutes, she loses more than half her weight. On the bottom of your screen on the left, our altitude, on the right, our speed. These figures coming in from the downrange stations. Galileo in yellow on the screen, on the left just disappearing. That's the local station here in Kuru. The data are received by the Russian teams in the launch center, then confirmed before being broadcast. Next up is jettison of the fairing. That's in about 20 seconds. Fairing measures 4 meters in diameter, stands about 11 meters tall. We can get rid of it now in 17 seconds because we no longer need the protection it gives the satellites during their ride through the Earth's atmosphere. At 100 kilometers up, we are out of the dense layers of the atmosphere. There's no more friction, no more heating, which can disturb anything to disturb the satellites. And there you see the fairing jettison. There's another half which is out of camera range on the port side of the vehicle. This powered phase of Soyuz's first 3 stages will last about 9 minutes. Then the upper composite, called the frigate, that's the upper stage, with the satellites, will be separated. It takes over and does the rest of the work, completing the mission. Europe's space effort is a 3-way affair. Arianespace marketing and operating the launch services and the Ariane program. The European Space Agency funding new programs. And the French Space Agency CNES overseeing coordination of all space-based operations. Marianne Claire, you heard her here just at the beginning of the broadcast, new director of the space base since a month, roughly, and also the first woman to hold the role.
Confirmation de la séparation des 2 demi-coiffes.
The CNES site here, chosen in 1964 because of many advantages, not least among them a large opening on the water. We have 50 kilometers of coastline, which makes possible flying both north and east, north for sun-synchronous orbits like tonight, east for geostationary orbits. Coming up on separation of the second stage. There you see what it looks like on the animation and what it looks like on the onboard camera. 186 kilometers up. And we will have ignition of the third stage. The DDU has just called that out. One unusual aspect of the Soyuz, whereas with Ariane, for example, we separate the lower stage before igniting the upper stage. Soyuz does the opposite. The third stage is actually ignited 2 seconds before separation of the second stage. The reason being, the lower part of the third stage, called the skirt, is used to channel the flux of this third stage motor ignition down toward the stage below, where it rebounds, giving an added thrust, assisting separation. The third stage skirt is then separated 10 seconds later, and during those 10 seconds, Soyuz climbs 4 kilometers. In an older version of Soyuz, without the frigate upper stage, it's the third stage, which put the satellites into its initial Earth orbit. Our next film, and the first on our passengers, coming up on Cosmos SkyMed second generation.
Hi, I'm Véronique Loisel, and I am the Program Director for Cosmos SkyMed second generation at Arian-5. My work mainly consists in interfacing with our customer for all subjects linked to technical matters, but also contractual, communication, financial, insurance, and legal aspects. Our job is to respond at best at our customers' requests. As for Cosmos SkyMed second generation, the 2,205 kilogram main satellite was manufactured by Thales Alenia Space in Italy for the benefit of the Italian Space Agency and the Italian Ministry of Defense. It is a dual system, civil and military, designed to address the requirements of both commercial and government customers, as well as the scientific community. Cosmos SkyMed second generation will be part of a constellation of 2 satellites, which aims at providing an enhanced quality of the imaging services to the end customers with respect to the current CSK constellation. Thales Alenia Space is a very important customer and partner for Arianespace. Indeed, Cosmos SkyMed second generation represents the 162nd satellite manufactured by the company and to be launched by Arianespace. It will be also the 4th satellite to be launched for the Italian Space Agency and the 9th for Italy, comprising ASI, Italian MOD and Telespazio.
You may have noticed that since the start of the mission, events are announced by the DDA with maybe a slight 1-2 second delay with the pictures you see on the animation. This is quite normal, nothing to be alarmed about. The information, that's telemetry and radar, coming into the ground stations, then sent by them here to Jupiter, have to be first confirmed by our Russian teams in Moscow. Then they come to French Guiana at the CVI, which is the Quick Look Telemetry Center, which relays them to the DDO here. So at certain moments there might be a short time lapse, nothing abnormal about that. We will be going up to the CVI for a visit later in the broadcast. The Soyuz we're using today, it's the most recent version, the Soyuz 2. Originally, you might recall, Soyuz was a missile called the R-7, the world's first intercontinental ballistic missile, ICBM, developed in 1953 by Sergei Korolev, who was the father of the Soviet space program. The Soviet R-series was modeled on the German V-2. On October 4th, 1957, R-7 put in orbit Sputnik, you will recall. There's the separation of the third stage. See what that looks like. And with that, we have come to the end of the first part of the powered flight phase. We're now awaiting confirmation of the first frigate burn. Saint-Hubert at the top of your screen. That's our next downrange tracking station. It's
Extinction du troisième étage et séparation du troisième étage.
We're waiting for confirmation of the first frigate burn. There will be 7, remember. Some will take place during the breaks, so we won't see them. We're going to cut away twice at 2 moments during the broadcast. We need 7 burns because we're launching 5 satellites, and although all are headed toward a sun-synchronous orbit, each has to go into its own orbit, of course, and its own altitude. And an interesting mix of satellites for this mission, multiple mission tonight. Cosmos SkyMed, Earth observation. The scientific mission Cheops for the European Space Agency. And then in the final part of the broadcast, 3 CubeSats, small ones, OpsSat, ISat, and Angels, will be describing each in turn. There you see, right on time, the first ignition of the frigate burns coming at 470 kilometers up, roughly. Our speed, 6.2 kilometers. This first burn will last 11 minutes. The second burn will take place at plus 1 hour into the mission, and the third, 51 minutes later. The frigate upper stage, produced by NPO Lavochkin, prime contractors, Mass at liftoff, 6.3 tons, carries almost as much in fuel, 5.3 tons. The frigate stands 1.5 meters tall. Frigate is an autonomous, flexible upper stage, relatively recent addition, qualified in 2000. It has been designed to operate as an orbiter and thus extends the capability of the Soyuz, giving her access to all orbits, low Earth orbit, sun synchronous like tonight, medium Earth orbit, GTO, GEO, and escape orbits. It's independent from the lower 3 stages, since it has its own tracking telemetry systems, navigation, and guidance. Our second film on Cosmos SkyMed, up next.
The Cosmos SkyMed system consists of a constellation of 4 identical satellites equipped with a high-resolution SAR, synthetic aperture radar, operating in X-band. It is a dual civil and defense system designed to address the requirement of both commercial and government customers, as well as the scientific community. Cosmos SkyMed allows global coverage of the planet, operating in all weather conditions and lightning, and provides geolocalized images with extreme accuracy. The Cosmos SkyMed system is a flagship of Italian technology in the world. It is the only constellation of this type currently existing in the global level. It is founded by the Italian Space Agency and the Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of Education, University and Research. The first and second generation of Cosmos system is a result and expression of the best skill of the Italian space industry. The second generation of the Cosmos system will ensure the continuity in the services so far provided by the first generation satellites and ground segments, representing a real generational leap in terms of technology, performance and operational life of the system, and providing new application possibility. Both satellites of the second generation are improved version of the original design. The Cosmos second generation SAR is also an improved version of the first generation X-band SAR system. Thales Alenia Space in Italy is the program prime contractor, therefore responsible for the development and construction for the entire Cosmos SkyMed system. Telespazio built the entire ground segment of this constellation, whilst Leonardo Electronics Division participates in the program producing state-of-the-art equipment that regulates and distributes the satellite electrical power. Thanks to the progressive growth of design and technological skills in SAR, Thales Alenia Space came into the 90s with the development of the constellation Cosmos SkyMed. The satellite platform that was used in a variety of missions such as RadarSat-2 and also in the ESA Copernicus Sentinel-1 radar satellite. Cosmo gave us also important commercial opportunity. We in fact have signed an important contract with Korean Agency for Defense and Development. We hope to continue on this successful path with other commercial achievements in the future. Finally, let me take this opportunity to thank the Italian Ministry of Defense and the Italian Space Agency for continuing to trust in us as a partner. And also, let me congratulate with all Thales Alenia Space team, all the employees that worked tirelessly to reach these great results in terms of milestone.
During the film, we were picked up by our next downrange tracking station, that's Saint-Hubert in Quebec. Soyuz heading north were no longer being followed by the Galileo station here locally in French Guiana. We're out of range. Saint-Hubert, located outside Montreal, the Canadian Space Agency has its mobile servicing system operations complex there, all kinds of training and tracking facilities for space operations and support. As we look at the Cosmos SkyMed team, their satellite will be separated in about 8 minutes, plus 12 minutes, I should say, plus 22 minutes, 44 seconds. Cosmos SkyMed is the 4th satellite to be launched by Arian-5 for the Italian Space Agency, ASI. The 3 others, 2 were launched on Vegas, that was Prisma, and Lares on the very first Vega mission, and Athena Fidus went up on an Arian-5. Our next film on the first passenger will give you an idea what the satellite will do once it's in place. Nice illustration during the film of how the satellite uses its spot beams. All proceeding normally on board at 19 minutes into the mission, 16 minutes to go in this first part. A note on the launch pad from where we lifted off, 28 kilometers from Jupiter roughly. It's the 7th in the world, 7th Soyuz pad, and the most recent until about 3 years ago. There are 2 Soyuz pads at Baikonur, 4 at Plesetsk. A new pad, the world's 8th, was built in Russia at Vostochny with a gantry, and the gantry is only used here at the CSG and at the new site at Vostochny. We're coming up in about 30 seconds on extinction of the first frigate burn, and you'll hear the DDO call out the milestone. Some other Soyuz facts, I'm sure you might recall, besides orbiting the first artificial satellite Sputnik over 60 years ago, 1957, of course, the first man in space, Yuri Gagarin, 1961, lifted by a Soyuz, the first woman in space, the first spacewalk. Soyuz also holds the world's highest demonstrated reliability record, close to 99%. That's pretty remarkable. You see the first stage engine shutting down, so that burn is over. Soyuz positioning herself for release of the first satellite, CSG-1. The frigate is on the extreme left of the vehicle. Our next film on Cosmos SkyMed, first maneuvers after separation.
Giancarlo, you are the Cosmos SkyMed second generation program director at the Italian Space Agency. Could you explain us the mission in a few words?
Cosmos SkyMed second generation is an Italian national Earth observation program. It's based on a constellation of X-band synthetic aperture radar satellites. It's a joint initiative between the Italian Space Agency and the Italian Ministry of Defense, and enables through a single system to fulfill both military and civilian national Earth observation needs. With the second generation, Italy will continue to benefit of a key space infrastructure that allows observing our planet in night and day and all weather conditions, providing also additional capabilities to the first generation, still in operation since more than 10 years.
Thanks, Giancarlo. Andrea, you are the satellite mission director. How would you summarize the different steps which will happen after the separation?
Concerning the commissioning of the satellite, we will follow a nominal process. During the LEOP, the satellite will deploy the solar array wings, the X-band downlink antennas, and the phased array antenna of the SAR payload. Before Christmas, we will enter in the in-orbit test phase. The satellite will reach its final orbit, a down-dusk sun-synchronous orbit with an average altitude of 620 kilometers, and we will perform the calibration of the electronic beams of the SAR payload. In springtime, we will complete the handover with the operational teams to allow the satellite to start to provide the services to our end users.
Approaching separation of Cosmos SkyMed. Cosmos SkyMed, you can see on the left of the vehicle. The 9th satellite to be launched by Arian for Italy. 2 more Italian satellites to be launched in the Arian backlog. There will be a CSG-2. There's also an auxiliary payload. CSG-1 built by Thales Alenia Space, the 161st satellite launched by Arian manufactured by the group. And there you have the scheduled separation. We're waiting for the DDO confirmation. Again, we mentioned the slight
fin de manœuvre d'orientation
lapse.
Au profit du satellite haut Cosmos SkyMed.
Before we get confirmation, always a moment of high concentration in Jupiter and around the world as at all the posts, the teams are monitoring their satellite. Separation, of course, marking an end as well as a beginning. But some of the Cosmo SkyMed team has been on the project for years. For others, work will be just beginning.
Confirmation de la séparation de la charge utile haute Cosmos SkyMed second generation.
All right, and you see the DDO confirming. And you hear the applause. The first good news of the night, Soyuz successfully separating her first passenger. the 2.2-ton Cosmos SkyMed second generation one. For the Cosmo people, you can see their smiles, a moment of triumph, watching their satellite leaving the mothership on its way to begin life on orbit. The satellite's early orbit maneuvers will take 1 week. In-orbit testing will be completed by next March. Start of operations scheduled for June. There will be a second Cosmos SkyMed we mentioned to be launched next year, I believe, and Ozzy tells us that full operational capacity with the 2-satellite fleet will be available in mid-2021. And on that note, we're going to go to a launch replay, and you can relive those very exciting moments as Soyuz left the pad almost half an hour ago. Frigate is moving into her first ballistics phase. We will suspend the broadcast momentarily while she does so and give you a break. We'll be back for more of the mission. Remember, 4 more passengers to be launched. You can stay connected during the break via the internet or watch events on the screen. Here in Kuru, the VIPs and visitors watching from the other observation sites at the base will be joining the crowd here for a breakfast. Everyone will return to their sites, to this site, to their sites, for the second part of the broadcast, which will begin at +2 hours and 1 minute. So enjoy the break. We'll see you back here then.